Good evening, everyone. And on behalf of the American Center in Moscow, I thank you all for joining us today. My name is Amira Tulkhanova, and I'm a literary enthusiast from Moscow, Russia. Today, I'm delighted to host a reading by a wonderful poet, Jeffrey Cyphers Wright. Jeffrey Cyphers Wright is best known as a new romantic poet. He is also a publisher, critic, eco-activist, impresario, filmmaker, puppeteer, and artist. He received his MFA after studying with Allen Ginsberg at Brooklyn College, where Wright also taught. He has read his work at the Museum of Modern Art, the Roxy nightclub in Amsterdam, and the Poetry Project at St. Mark's Church, where Wright was also on the board of directors for several years. Wright is the author of 19 books of verse, including Blue Lyre and Party Everywhere. Poems have appeared in various journals, including the Café Review, New American Writing, the Brooklyn Rail, the Hurricane Review, and Posit, among others. Recent work also appears in the Anthologies, Best American Poetry, New NYC Insiders, and Contemporary Surrealist and Magical Realist Poetry. His latest work, a book of sonnets and artwork called Doppelgängster, is from MadHat Press. For many years, Wright published Cover magazine, which covered all the arts. Now he publishes a poetry and art journal called Life Mag. He is the Kathy Acker Award recipient for both writing and publishing. He has been an artist in residence at Howl Happening and at the E-Media Loft. Tonight, Jeffrey is going to read his poems for us for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll get a chance to ask some questions. You can drop them in the chat, and I'll be happy to post them to the poet. And I also just want to let you know that our team at AMC has posted on social media a link to the poems that will be read tonight, accompanied by their side-by-side Russian translations, so you can read them along. Jeffrey, welcome to Meet a Poet.
Thank you so much, Samira. It's wonderful to be here. Appreciate it very much. So I put on my American clothes for you guys. My Native American also here. Okay. So these poems that I'm reading today they're all on the new side. And they're from a manuscript called Fuel for Love. And they also happen to all be sonnets. This one's called The Quick Key. Ever shrinking path to glory's kennel, sunset's corsage smudges the Hudson, cormorants command black pilings, loneliness spreads grape kush wings. Who says you have to work late? Who insists you flirt with posterity? Time races on in a black thunderbird, ashes knocking at the fire door. Who says you need to guard the exit? A burning submarine fingering the fingering the sea. Fun melts away as you polish light, chasing the hounds of fame. Razor thin euphoria is a wake-up call. The party is here, inside these cells. And this is called Ghost Powder. Have a little earthquake here. Okay, Ghost Powder. Excuse me, and thank you again, everybody. I really appreciate your interest. Hope you have a good time. Ghost Powder. A cloud scalloped the sky like pale fish over the river. The carousel on Pier 25 closes for the season. I waste my days courting puppets and chasing women. October turns out its empty pockets, squeezing the last glow from evening. The nation teeters on spindly hind legs. I almost lose it in the Bureau of Frustration. Baz and I swap jail stories at Howl. The pigeon lady quivers under feathers at you. Catherine Bradford paints a pirate ship in my imagination. Another friend had a stroke, and the frogs have a motto, born to croak. Giant sighs. August is a saucy scamp, a brazen hustler, rustling in black silk and fishnet stockings, and purple dahlia, dianthus laced. August is a racehorse in a cave, a county fair, boiling over light in the warehouse of desire, antlers on a heat wave. a wedding caked. Shopping for memories, sumptuous red trumpet vines tumble over the fence line. You find a word to quell the nerve swell. Troubadourable, busier than a Byzantine. The herald arrives early. Dire portents gather up steam for the monster prom. Truth shuttles through a stuttering loom, and August swaggers, drunk on the moon. And this poem is in the latest issue of the Best American Poetry for 2023, edited by Elaine Equi, and I'm so happy to have this poem in here called Sweepstake. Garlic paper flakes off like dried seconds, impatient for me to put words on them. I whirl through February a dizzy twister. Not every day is a holiday. You don't say. A genie rises from the bowl, smoke signals, coffee holds out a brown mitten. We grind the candlelight, smelting ardor. An aqua tug bullies its cargo upstream. Plenty to take care of here, plenty to share. Trains leave every hour, but we stay. Glinting wires hint at the unseen guides that keep our act gliding air. The river slips from steel into teal satin. Dusk's push broom comes, sweeping us along. From Best American Poetry. And Paradise Answering Service. November draws its purse. Between useless and euphoria, I sleuth for meaning. Hold on one second. I'm just going to turn this off. Hello. Hello. This has got to be. Listen, Ilka, darling, listen, I'm on a Zoom with the Russian people. Okay, darling, bye. You know, I saw Frank O'Hara do that one time. They were interviewing him for a movie. He was on the phone and writing a poem for a reading that night. Sorry about that. All right, I'll start again. Sorry. And I was doing so well, huh? Paradise Answering Service. November draws its purse strings tight. The moon is eaten by a pack of clouds. My old lamp blinks its wiring shot. Between useless and euphoria, I sleuth for meaning, meandering from Chelsea to the river, listening to the shivers, to Robert Kelly, lifting scripture off a mirror, on windmill attack mode, milling around in my grab bag of jeans. At the end, the language we suspend will shepherd us past midnight's derrick, leaning on eternity like a vagrant. Oh, I'll pay for the foolish love I spent when you were on top of my to-do list. Paradise Answering Service. Hyperion takes a hit. Surrounded by invisible naked ladies, I haunted alleyways of wrecked Burgundy, listening to Heitor Villa-Lobos's fantasies. What I like is starter fluid on Bozo's grave. Demand eternity, but settle for ecstasy. Malappropriation strategies, for instance, Custard's Last Stand, 20,000 leaks under the sea, IOUs dripping from the sun's blind spot. What kind of fuel am I? My arms still brag about holding you up in night's watch repair shop. Fire lost in your lips I find abandoned. There are only green lights in Go Town. Peter the Great. Hey, how about that, huh? A happy coincidence. Peter the Great. A few clouds in the south proceed apace. My days are made of such lost parades. Helen Hooker plays a madrigal on QXR. Red coxcombs spurt wrinkled flame. Sunset flares a halo behind your hair. Homing geese seek the horizon's navel. Life is swell and you are a lucky charmer. The sugar-frosted snow moon beams. Under your spell, on top of der Welt, submersed in the champagne of your wake, your lips touch mine, softly idling like a getaway car, lightning on your breath. This is what I live for, to be here, inside the glow only majesty can bequeath. Peter the Great, spreading the wealth. Each snowflake is the king of wind, diving and rising by command until landing on snowdrops who bow pale lavender heads. You go back and forth between being blind and seeing into my heart, standing trial in love's court. But you always come out on top, like snow, embarrassingly beautiful, in your intent, at least. You never promise to compromise, and we are louder than allowed, sinking the dream bundle with full rounds of empty wonder. Shame and the Shamans. Speaking of flambeau, I will be yours. The night may wiggle, but you'll be still here when next we address the sun and get dressed in our investments. Lost inside a wounded rainbow, I grub for roots in the ghost meadows. We need to elucidate. We need to enunciate our elucidation. There's the rubber meeting the road. My dad's last words were, oh shit. But at least he got that comma in there. To become our full selves, we dissolve into reams of the dark's unscrolling log. Oh, darling, you were torching the clock, and I was holding on to a lucky hand. Oh, let's see. Sorry, I lost my place here. I'm so sorry. Let's see. The Perils of Pauline. Here we go. State mint. This is a joke on the word statement. Being naughty here. There we go. State mint, because it's also like the mint you eat, but it's like a statement. Also the mint where they make money. So all those words mint in English. State mint. A caravan of lost chances staggers on. Steam calls me to the witness stand. Your eyes arc-weld beams to sundown. Life plunges, a waterfall we go over inside a charred whiskey barrel, licensed to fool ourselves en masse. And the species gags on the hand it's dealt. I need to be alone now, a lighthouse in Mercury's solarium. The heart of forever beats me up. Pigeons fan their tails and ruffle puff. Bourdain takes us out for a liquid lunch. Surely there's a better way to play it cool, threading what stars unspool. Cantata. Drought robs the sycamores, plucking leaves in June. A breeze pushes them into a swarm of withered pages, rasping anxiously across the court. then stillness. They die back down. Invisible forces carry us along. I am a prisoner of hope, a congress of loneliness, a dry tear. An old motor sputters before purring. Empty boxcars couple with a boom. Copying Ovid's playbook, I hold out for change. Home is made of wings. Thunder clears its throat but won't sing. The goal in life is joy. Today, sun reigns. The Ostrich Colony. Born to rhyme. You all hot for posterity, and me in exterior. Even alone, we are not we. Japonica spills buttons in primrose. Virginia bluebells ring the river path. Elsewhere, freedom fighters flail. Our hour on the promenade we hover, never landing, furthering ever a cascading effort that leaves us here. So, you want to do it again? Sure. Practice makes us purr. Then black lentils and tarragon for dinner. Looking underground for what matters. Time leaves holes to stick our heads in. The Ostrich Colony. Excuse me, this one's for a friend who died unexpectedly from Vienna. Hilary Keel. Ode to a Nightcap. The last party boat steers for Red Hook. Strings of light webbing its stern. Ghost eyes riveting water's black mirror. Home is a course we can only channel. Our nets come back alive with echoes. I miss you when brute tugs bellow, when a lusty foghorn bows its cello, when the Williamsburg Bridge trundles into slumber, its cables a giant's harp. Dream until it hurts, starburst. I've been on to you ever since meeting at the garden, your smile a beacon. Here's to you, fairy lover from Vienna, until the rabbit and top hat unite as one. Required fields. Clouds shut the sky, leaving pearl. A Chinese woman walks a Welsh dog. I am a swan, and you are becoming a ladder made of wands. We believe in the pirates of penance. Detectives search for a missing address. Friends attend a random protest. Some of us bet on long shots, charting a course of emptiness. Our shoes wear out, chasing a dream. Once our eyes burned, torturing light. Remember how we begged for answers? Now catastrophes are nothing new. Gratitude never ends. Other things do. Ask me. The wolf moon goes down like butter on our pancakes made with bean flour. Wind axes white blazes on the black, brackish Hudson. Daily errands arise. Transcribing the diary of Minerva's owl, adding scarred sparks to fire's engine, zeroing in on water's flying roots. This is where I find you, half hidden in the bulrushes, naked and alone. Dirty silence pushes us together, combing honey from our unity as we inherit a new birth in every breath. I know a keeper when one comes along. Miracles are makeable if you ask me. Ask me. Changing station. Agony. The inevitability of our demise. We were spinning sugar when the giant crutch fell short, the clocks running for their lives, the city humming like a freezer, a black caboose on ice. You were making mushroom ragu. I was admiring your industry, reading the Metropolitan section. When the denouement comes, look for me in the cockpit, handing out straws to clutch as we veer into a viral spiral. The Empire State Building's opal spire cuts into night. That's kind of how I am now, a lightsaber, ready for hire. Host and hostage. Jackdaws gather at 4:27 to wrangle over afternoon's felt hat. I listen to piano trio number 1 in E flat. A little ocean gargles in my throat, practicing bad goodbyes. Somehow, I've managed to love all whom I've known, curmudgeons in dank dungeons and giants in fog cages. Their beautiful wounds stuffed into bottles wash up now like beached stars on hissing sand. Our suffering is buffered by the offerings we glean from our trials, squeezing forever out of a while. Fog's heavy crown. I'm on a grand jury. Bells are ringing. A siren chases bad luck. Charges are brought up. Fates delivered by our show of hands. Pouring prayers into a muddy yard. Snowflakes practice disappearing. Death prepares us to live in solitude's garage. You are my bumper car. Let the lonely find each other like plastic bags snagged on a cross. I am my own zoo, and so are you. We follow hollow light into a keyhole and come out like red lights throbbing atop high rises, crowned by heavy fog. Salvos. Okay. Night rides hard on its quarter moon saddle, chasing a dream through December's froth. Pounding on tomorrow's back door, I barge into the passageway, tracking a whim. Leaves frozen to the path, head for home. Crinkly carnations stretch pink truth. We dither with dust's feathers, ever grateful for heroes we find in dark spots. Bernadette's gotten younger since she died, taking time and scattering it in glitter wind. My personal goal is to score. There's some eggnog left and rum from Haiti. Be my stage, and I'll be your coach. Lick my wounds, be a salve for love's slave. Salvos. Scavenger hunt. And to some extent, I kind of think of as a poem as like a scavenger hunt, you know? A wonderful game. But you're out there looking for stuff, right? Scavenger hunt. After the storm, a fresh moon comes, rolling back to its old perch over Avenue B, doing the walk of shame after abandoning its post for a week. Unfaithful body slung between clouds, décolleté tempting the Gap 2 skyline. A few windows match evening's mauve empire, soft rubies at home, en point. It's okay to retreat to your private reserve and leave me to my privations. We all need to lose ourselves in the universe. In the hollow face of January's shadow, sycamores sport white dinner jackets, serving snow with their limbs akimbo. Sexistentialism. Daylilies rave, brief candles on a cake. June was a blip, a blurred face stealing past strobing slats, a few words left like ants on our picnic blanket. Feeding the blaze between your legs, I strode into the winner's circle like the square root of a lost division, a witch burning sentences at the stake. I am yours, Starfleece. You flay me. Venus hot-wired and gasping. The mattress bucks, doubling as a prow, rejoicing in juice, salting light, blotting time with the word countess. My life, a mandala of thirsty glasses. Fuel for love. Sundown drags some fiery slag into a gap in the Jersey skyline. Day's wick meets the star trimmer and glides toward the target area, harvesting goodbyes. Old statues vow to obey whatever green habits they have donned. Shadows of wigs weave through the park's limbs. Windfall plums bruise the ground. Our story, a road of half-used light. Welcome to the hero you squeezed out of an antique compass. The driver signals, humming a jingle. Now, cornering the tokens of distance, what we run on expands as it diminishes. Tall King Talking. This has an epigraph by an American poet named Will Alexander, who's Surrealist, has books out, City Lights and other. And it says, concerned with the voltage of angels. Tall King Talking. A blind pilot, your tongue mixes the point, busy taking the future's order. Last call at Lascaux, Borneo again. You will teach the willows to weep and turn their tears into carbon sinks. Keep a star's eyelash on a leash. Listen to the telemetry of trembling. A language long entombed in lightning's vault ignites the vesper fields. Dust bites its nails. Snails leave their script on the columbine's green hearts. For now, there's only the new and the new. Involuntary spasms drowning the sun's spine. The Daily News. Across from the library and its mossy bangs, pigeons flurry, dicing the air. Caution light caught between red and green, a golden eye that sees all for a brief eternity. Squirrel scrawled on dusk's blackboard bends the higher branches, not the highest. I came looking for unlikely glory, my days carved out of starving pearls. In the palace of beggars, love is the quarry, a singing fire we learn how to hurl. The river's hair sweeps me into your arms. Let tomorrow fall into the same trap. This is for the poet and translator Sarah Arvio. Glad to be of surface. It hurts to be in love, day and the night. A crow hails the cold, deserted light. Branches break off in intense winds. 1,000 petals clog my view. We talk fonts, Optima meet Wheezy. Small dogs spiral in a noisy yap spat. I stain the window with a vacant gaze, looking for a tank of laughing gas. Don't make a mountain out of a mole, the spy said. I've gotten ahead of myself, following your shadow. Why stop now, so near the end, now that you're a cross between an avant-gardenia and a harlequin? The Wichita doctors are restless. Still waiting to be overturned, we cornered the market on nervous green energy. Twister Alley, your black robes flare, your artificial prayers plague the prairies. Hold me close under the hanging tree, O deputy of the pellet court. Night builds its nest on the window's brow. Abraham Lincoln is out trick-or-treating. The brain-dead fall for the gag rule, like unhinged leaves in a leaf chain store, like the fall of the Roman Empire. A white pumpkin spoofs my bookshelf. You're running late and message me. Crazy love is simply the icing on the gravy. So almost got a couple more here. Time is good. White Toaster. Wheelbarrow poem. White Toaster. Mostly just the title. White Toaster. Rubbing it with a sponge, scrunging off a splat of roux or a smudge of fudge, I become Aladdin. Up periscope. Welcome to the Wishbone Factory. As you enter, please be sure to poke fun at the funerary arrangements. Keep knotting the eternal flame, taking ref in each pupil. You early indicator of foxhood, you. When I say jump, you ask how? High? And so I reply, I am with you all the way from Foggy Mountain to Fancy Gap. Give it up for the colossal fossil policy. I'll be your heel, you'll be my Achilles. Placeholder. I don't think that one's in the manuscript. Calling the tune. We were ringing pitch from the stars, making torches for vain jugglers. We toasted the breadwinners. May they be well by every loafer between here and Tuscaloosa, where old elephants head in spring as rain sings like lingerie on bowing boughs. Way to go, sassafras eyes. Did I say how fine you are? Such infinite finesse. Sometimes the best times are blind, feeling their way through a feathered cave, dancing on waves of chromium fire. While the world burns, let them remember we did our best to answer to the fiddler. And I do believe I've only got one left here. And this has an epigraph also by Yves Bonnefoy. No more paths for us. Nights and daisies. Bring your drum, a pile of darkness, black cherries. Bring a fire you let go out. Bring your naked trust. Bring the strait you swim across. Bring the chain of storms you ride like a bandit inside. Bring a bottle. Bring a shoreline to the party. God has given up trying to finish us. We're too thirsty for heaven's well. I hear you splashing in the unknown river that runs between our legs. Surrounded by a waterfall of now, this is my love letter to everything, written in rain on evening's gown. And thank you so much. I'd like to thank everybody who came out and all the presenters in the American Center in Moscow. And I hope this finds everybody well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing your poetry with us tonight. Oh, there is a. Does that sound good?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. Just I wanted to remind the audience that you guys feel free to leave your questions in the chat, and I'll be happy to read them to Jeffrey. And while the people of our webinar today are writing their questions, I'll ask you a few of mine.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became involved in the art world?
I guess, I grew up with a lot of books around, and the arts were kind of appreciated. Even though I grew up in a small town in West Virginia, partially a part of the time, it was a college town, and so education was really important. And then I just was drawn to poetry, and then in high school I was presented with E. Cummings, and I thought, man, I like that a lot. I was writing a lot of letters at the time because we moved around, and I like the freedom of that surrealism. That not so much E. Cummings, but he had a surrealist approach to the writing, when he didn't use punctuation and capitals, and it all seemed very freeing at the time. And then in college and then afterwards in college, I met some kind of more serious people in poetry, and I thought, I like this stuff, and I like these people, and I love the poetry. And actually, I was going to say, so I was like working at the library at the University of West Virginia University, and that's where my archive is now. And the librarian had a couple of specialties, and one of them was Russian poetry. And so he had this immense section that had all these people, especially from around, like Akhmatova and Mayakovsky and the Blocks and Yesenin. And then later on, I met a bunch of the moderns, like Ginsberg introduced me to Andrei Vosnesinsky, and I started liking that stuff a lot too. But the early ones had a major impact on me. Lorca, Mayakovsky, Dylan Thomas for the music, Mayakovsky for the boldness of the surreal imagery, And then when I got to New York in '76, it was like full steam ahead with poetry. Everybody I knew was a poet. And now everybody I know is still a poet or an artist, it seems like.
And you were really involved in the, like, not really involved, it seems like you create this artistic world and like kind of bring all the poets and all the artists together. So why do you think that community is important to poets, and if so, why?
Oh, well, because I think it should be oh, there's somebody at the door. Who could it be?
Oh, I'm here now. Look at me. Oh, yeah. I think it's because it's fun, Zamira. He's a lot of fun, that guy there. Yeah.
Whoops. What? You can't even say in the picture. What's wrong with you?
Oh, yeah, there I am. It's a lot of fun to be here with you guys. Hey, why don't you put on your fun hat, Javier?
All right. Here's why. Here's why, Zamira. Rufus, bye.
That's amazing.
Shows on YouTube you can find easily. During the pandemic, I was doing them. I mean, community is so much. That's all I do is hang out with my friends and then try to be alone, my grandkids, my sons. But the community in the poetry world is, is what really sustains you. You go to the reading, and the people, they're amused, or they're sad, they're moved, and there's this sort of creates a congregation, a community, actually, where everyone's mind is at the same spot at the same time, and it's unique and very bonding. Yeah, community is really important. And doing the magazines and a lot of readings, I host a lot of readings. It creates bonds. And with the Zoom thing, it could be much more international. It can promote a lot of goodwill and, good influences of the poetry. You hear some good stuff. I tend to really like what I hear out of other places more than a lot of American poetry.
That's, I mean, going to inspire a lot of Russian poets to kind of like keep writing and to join different international kind of like communities of poets. Here is a question from the audience. Given your broad experience in various fields of art and literature, what advice would you offer to young poets and artists who are just starting their journeys?
Well, to that question of community, make yourself part of a community. Go to people's events, their openings, buy their books if you can, if they're doing that. When I started, my mentor, Ted Berrigan, said, start a magazine. And his magazines were very simple and inexpensive. And he said, publish yourself and a few friends and try to get a couple of famous people who you like. So that's kind of the mantra. And then I started a reading series right away with a poet named Jim Brodey. And so that was another way of building the community, responding to the work. I get a lot of inspiration listening to other poets, both reading and listening, you know. Yeah. So thanks for that question.
There is another one that kind of like goes along with the first one and like kind of like follows up. Many creators often speak of a mentor or a guiding figure in their lives. Who has played that role for you? You just mentioned someone who was like your mentor. And what's the most invaluable advice you received from them? I think you partly answered it, but maybe.
Yeah. Ted Bergen to start the magazine, right? Allen Ginsberg, his main aesthetic advice, I think, was to pay a lot of attention to meter.
That's
yeah, he had us trying to write like in strophes and anapesta stuff. I don't even know. I can't even remember what he was at. Sapphic ode, but yeah, Ted started the magazine. Ted was very into the community. And Ted also said it's good if you have humor in your poetry, which a lot of poets don't, because especially if you're in a live situation, the humor is instantly recognizable by who you know sort of chuckles there.
And you know, while you were talking about your poetry, or like you were reading the poems, and when you stopped at the scavenger hunt poem, you mentioned, I just wrote down the quote: "I look at the poems as a scavenger hunt." Can you please expand a little bit on that thought?
Sure. So like there was a line, the poem about the library's moss, the Daily News. So Daily News is the name of the newspaper in town here, but it's like everybody has Daily News, right? So on a scavenger hunt, I'm looking for words and phrases to use all the time. So suddenly I thought, oh, the Daily News is good for a title. And so then I'm looking for other stuff. The library's calling me. So God, I just mentioned the library, didn't I? The mossy banks of the library, I was saying. So I'm looking around for images, words, phrases to pull into the poem. So I'm always looking for, I'm sorry, I didn't take care of this sooner. I'm not used to being on. My book is here. Oh, it's past due. It was a great book. So the poem
is supposed to bring back. What book are you supposed to bring back to the library?
I'll show you. It's so cool. It's so cool. It's about the this Native American guy who, you know, right when the English first came. But actually, also this one is worth just pulling out. Robert Bly. His poems are amazing. So,
that's wonderful. Are there any other poets that you would like to?
Well, I want to go back to that other thing about the scavenger hunt, you know, because I think that is important. And so, you know, you keep your notebooks and you write down stuff in your notebook. I don't know, my notebook, here's my notebook right in front of me. I keep it, you know, and if I'm on a Zoom reading, I'm always writing in here and quoting or misquoting, because if it's a misquote, I can steal it straight up, right? But with this, and that's the thing with the scavenger hunt, you're looking for stuff. So I only write a poem, really write one every couple of weeks, but I'm always looking. And so in the notebook, there'll be like phrases that might work in the poem. And so with that poem, it starts off looking around for something. So when I thought the library has this green, like mossy algae sort of thing. So when I thought of, oh, the library has green bangs, mossy bangs. And then the pigeons were flying around, and I figured out a way to stick them in, because you can't just say the pigeons were flying around. I said they were dicing the air. So if you can get something like those two images together, they're kind of fresh. And there was a couple more in that poem that were like that. The sycamores with the snow on there, the squirrel on dusk's blackboard. So I was out there looking for something. I saw the squirrel. And I had been reading, I think, some Chinese poetry. So, you know, the squirrel's on the higher branches, but not the highest. It's sort of like a spiritual thing. I don't know. So anyway, that was that scavenger hunt. It's a way. Some people who don't write poetry that much, they say, oh, well, I just sit down and write it, you know, comes out or it doesn't. What? And I'm like, Yeah, well, other people, they work at it, they collect things, they, play around with it a lot.
And if you could go a little bit deeper into your like writing process, so like you touched a little bit upon ideation, but how do you normally work on, like, what's your process between ideation and like a ready poem? Because you said like others just like sit down and write, and you kind of like you collect all the information.
I do sit down and do that, but it only gets me so far, and then I'm like scrambling around with my notes and looking. I usually have the radio on. Like one of my last poems, it's got this lines about the bleeding clock. We put bandages on the bleeding clocks, getting us ready to take forever off. So take forever off was a line while I was trying to write it from a song by The National. And it just happened to get me out of this poem and finish it up. And that was another thing that Ted, actually, my mentor, Ted Berrigan, had mentioned, was write with the radio on. And what he meant was to have these external things be able to come into your poem.
That's so cool.
You have to anchor the poem with things. Thanks. You can't just, be up in the air. You have to be up in the air some, but you have to anchor them with real things and images that people can see. For me, it's very much about imagery and lyricism.
Jeffrey, I'm actually very surprised. Today we have so many questions, and I'm like, I want to make sure that everyone's questions gets asked and answered. How do your personal experiences and beliefs shape your role as a critic? Are there any personal principles you stand by when critiquing works of art?
Oh, that's interesting. So I do a lot of criticism of both art and poetry, and I try to write about stuff I like. I rarely write about something I don't like. But even in conversations, I don't dismiss someone who's trying to do art. If they're trying to do it, even poetry, it can be bad poetry, but I could find something in it to like. And so I guess that's one of my core things, is try to encourage people, try to find something. My poems have a lot of like I had to look up Hyperion when I wrote Hyperion Takes a Hit, which has a double meaning. But I didn't really know he was one of the gigantrons or something from the beginning of before time and Zeus and everybody. Zeus's mommy or daddy, I mean. But anyway, so the point being that I'm trying to educate people in the thing. And that's another one of my core principles, is to educate people, because that was my background. That was the religion in my house.
Mm-hmm.
I try also to project a winning persona of somebody who's having fun. One of my books is called Party Everywhere. But the point was that, a party could be a party meeting. It could be like serious, or it could be like working in the garden or community garden. So that's another thing. And then I think also would be service. But also I feel so like my own life has been so blessed in so many ways. Again, I need to project this winning persona, and I need to put these moral sort of little epigrams and stuff in the poems. So to me, they're full of just distilled kind of little bon mot wisdom things thrown in there every now and then. Yeah. You want an example?
Sure.
Let me give you an example, and we can move on. That's not a good one. I'll find one for you. Let's see. There's the bleeding clock one. That's not exactly it. Here's a joke one. Give it up for the colossal fossil policy, but that's not really one either. I said they were all in here. Look at me. Crazy love is simply the icing on the gravy. So that's kind of, thank you. That's kind of saying something about, being in love, looking for a tank of laughing gas. Not exactly, but anyway, they're in there.
Crazy love really sounds like an icing on the gravy, that's very visual, very kind of like you kind of feel it once you read it. There is another question here. Life in the arts often requires resilience and adaptability. Can you recall a challenging period in your life and how you navigated it? And I guess, another question would be like, what are the challenges? What are those challenges you run into as a poet or as an artist in general?
What was the first question again? Is this similar?
Life in the arts.
I know. I remember. Something in my life. Well, I mean, the existential threat of global warming is threaded throughout all of these poems. And then the idea of a muse, of a lover, the lover's always in here too. And sometimes those things, like the first poem, I think was the one where you don't have to guard the exit, chasing the hounds of fame. It's like, we could be having fun while you're doing that, so that could happen. Because my own life is like fairly good. I guess there was a poem I wrote about not getting hired at Brooklyn College. After 3 years, they passed me over. And originally it was called I'm Not Getting Hired at Brooklyn College. But then my teacher read it and said, oh, you should send that to the New Yorker. And then I think I got hired again, but I can't remember the name of the poem. Oh, well, it was like a total reaction to this thing. And it had these lines in it like, and your skin, your miserable hide stretched between stars will be a drum. Eagles will amass a legacy of sky. There's a few lines in there. They're almost biblical. That goes back to that question about meaning, and I'm trying to put this little moral thing in each poem, some kind of little moral nugget, pearl surrounded by the poem,
And also, Jeffrey, you mentioned this kind of like flirting with posterity. You mentioned that your life has been fairly kind of successful. And there is a question from the audience that kind of like matches these conversations. So basically, lastly, given on all the experiences and roles, how do you personally define success? Has the definition evolved over the years for you?
That's one fun question. I remember telling my father, who was against me being a poet for a long time, until he found the spirituality that was there, I think. And then he liked it. He was a scientist. And so I told him, I said, hey, Dad, look, I'm going to give this a really good shot here. I'm going to give it my best shot. And if by 40 I haven't succeeded, if I hadn't found success, I'll do something else, right? So his question was interesting. He said, well, how will you know if you found success or not? So, I mean, in many ways, I didn't find poets by definition, practically. The old joke about what did the famous poet say? Nothing. They were dead. The same with the art world. And some, there are the lucky ones, but the community is very sustaining with that. It's like to be able to go out. All my social calendar, except for family, is like going to my friends' events, pretty much. I try to keep up with some other stuff too, but generally, if I'm going somewhere, I know someone. And if I don't know someone, I will know someone in the audience. If I go to an opening, I don't know the artist, which is quite often the case, but I'll definitely know somebody and hanging around at the opening.
But, were there any moments of self-doubt when you told your dad that, if you're not successful by 40, and then kind of like, were there any moments when you doubted yourself and you were like, maybe Dad, you were right, and I need to.
I had to take a lot of time, step back and earn a living a lot of times. And I was running a magazine before this one that was really a large enterprise, large-ish enterprise. And I didn't have time to write a lot, some of those there was some adversity there. Trying to run that magazine, always being broke, trying to scrounge up the money all the time, managing all these lunatics who were my friends. And but I didn't write a lot, but I did write a couple. There was some poems about turned over every stone in the forest, which meant, looking for money. And then it was back in a flash with a stash, which meant that I had found the money.
And how did you, what kept you going all the time? Is it love for poetry, or is it kind of like, I don't know, grit? Or like what kept you going? What kept you?
Grit. Women. Poetry, right? And also, I like to write about the romantic side of it. So I know it. I know. I would say most all of my girlfriends were crazy about poetry. But that is part, and it's a big part of my subject matter. Also, though, I think I was like a really spiritual, always, in a lot of ways. Like when I was a kid, I kind of believed everything. I believed in Santa Claus for so long, it was like embarrassing. My parents finally was like, no, okay. So I found that in the poetry. When I read the poetry, I was reading the Bible last night because it was Yom Kippur, and I was just looking at it, and I found some passages, and it was like, it's good stuff. And I grew up with that language, that beautiful King James version of the Bible. That language was so elevated and interesting. It finds its way into my poems sometimes, and it's always there. I'm always aware of the diction levels switching back and forth, high, low, throw in a French word, throw in some slang. Lately, I used the word cool. I used it one or too many times, had to take it out. Speaking of self-doubt, though, man, I was having self-doubts just reading today. I found a poem that I had accidentally left the same word in twice and forgot to take it out, and I was mortified.
I loved it.
You're so sweet.
And Jeffrey, last kind of like a couple of weeks ago, with the folks from the poetry kind of salon where we discussed poetry, we were reading your poems, and one of the questions was like, "What is a new romantic poet, and what does it mean to you?" So kind of like to say it for other people who ask this question. Maybe you have the answer to that.
Well, New Romanticism was an actual movement in fashion, the arts, and music. Classically, music, especially in the 90s, when I was trying to come up with the term, my crew, my community, the New Romantics, because we were romantic. We were writing about love and sex and being outsiders. But we had a really strong tradition. We had a really strong community, and I just wanted something that, like, if I'm not a beatnik, but if you look up beatnik, you'll find all these poets. So I thought, we kind of need something. And I also think, like, as my poetry, especially, the idea of like bringing from the past. There are examples of that. There's like, there's the rub. Is Shakespeare, but he goes, there's the rubber meeting the road. So now it's like a cliche, but bringing that in was a real part of it. In fact, I was totally inspired by Sir Thomas Wyatt and his love poems for Anne Boleyn. She kind of jilted him, and they were the first time I'd seen in English, the oldest that I'd seen anything like that, and I just went crazy for it. Court of Venus was his first book. And so I thought that was so romantic. And then also, I mean, the romantics, like the painters, like Drive-In or something, would go, but that's so new. How could it be old and like decrepit already? So the idea of ruins is always also a part of it.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Now, I want to say, like, we have a question, or like time for one more question, but apparently we don't. And thank you for the opportunity to host you tonight. Thank you to the American Center in Moscow for organizing the event.
Yes,
and thank you to the great audience for your wonderful questions today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And until we meet again.
Don Vidastya. Did I say it right?
One more time, please.
Don Vidastya. Don Vidastya. Goodbye in Russian.
Yeah. Let's try again.
Vidanya. Thank you.
There you go.
And thank you.